probably up in the 7 or 10 years in a row at Cal GIS. There's been a women's meetup. Here in the Sacramento areas, there's been the ladies' nights out, and then GIS ladies' lunches as a way of getting more GIS ladies together. As a result of these small networking coalitions like coming together, we started talking about it, and there needs to be something internationally. And there are some really great groups in New Zealand and in Texas and in Colorado and on the eastern seaboard. And we just thought, why not get something global? So, because it's Thursday. And so we got a group together, threw up a little website, and there's a bunch of it's funny, I keep going for this mouse and it's not attached to anything.
You're trying to plug it in.
And so we've got a website up now, and if you go to womeningis.org, you can see a bunch of resources. There's like a really nifty story map that got posted, a LinkedIn group for women in GIS, and it tells who's managing each of these groups. You can also join a listserv. Many of us who are involved in this particular group of women in GIS are involved in other nonprofits, and like we serve as signatories on like nonprofits and whatnot. And we have kind of a goal of making this Women in GIS group a nonprofit, and somehow gathering funds, giving people money to do cool stuff. One of the neat things, Jane serves on the NorCal board with me. She's actually our incoming president. But one of the things that we like to do with NorCal is give out scholarships, and we have networking things too, along with other educational events. But like having Women in GIS scholarships maybe tailored towards letting a professional woman in GIS go to a conference that maybe her work wasn't going to cover, or otherwise helping a student get a scholarship when they might not have had a scholarship for something. So these are some ideas that we're floating around. We also would like to help direct people more towards mentoring options. Whether you're an established woman in her career and you'd like to help mentor up and coming folks, or maybe you're in the middle of your career and you'd like something more along the lines of a sponsorship. So some potential sponsor above you who can reach down into your organization and help encourage you to come upwards, help facilitate your upward growth. So these are just some ideas that are floating around. And it's funny, Megan is also on the small group of, actually it's getting bigger. We're about 20 ladies large now. And the listserv is hundreds of people deep, and we'd love to get it to grow some more. One of the questions I've been asked before, is this exclusive to women? It is not. Because even if you're not a woman, you work with women. Maybe you work for a woman. Maybe you have women subordinates. But we like to encourage men to join as well. So take a look at it. One of the new things that we've done is we just started doing a new interview series. So there's going to be a showcase on stellar ladies in GIS. And for example, Becky Morton, she's a photogrammetrist and a CEO. So if you want to read about more stellar lady GISers, you can check it out. So womeningis.org. And there's also a Twitter and a Facebook and all of that. And so just check online. Cool. Thank you.
Okay, and before I forget, you mentioned NorCal Urissa. I believe we're having our December social on December 10th. So it'll be in the evening at Fox and Goose. So put that on your social calendar. Does anybody have any other announcements like that they'd like to share about interesting things coming up? I mentioned the American Water Resources Association, GIS, biennial conference next July. And the Esri UC is moved up to the end of June this year. I think because of the Major League All-Star game or something like that. It's going to be in San Diego the same the week. Anyway, so
But he had a job.
Michelle?
The OSGO California chapter is currently planning our yearly
Hang
meeting.
on.
It looks like it's going to be the middle of January.
Okay, so Michelle is talking about the OSGO, which is the open source. Is it on?
There we go. Hello? Okay. So the Open Source Geospatial Foundation has a California chapter. It's open source, GIS users, developers, anyone basically that's interested in using open source tools can come hang out with some pretty cool people. We have among our membership people like Frank Warmerdam. He was the developer of GDAL. He hangs out with us. Just name dropping. But anyway, we just started planning our yearly chapter meeting. So if you're interested, let me know. We can get you on the list. It looks like it's going to be somewhere in the middle of January, probably either in Sacramento or Davis or potentially in San Jose. Those have been where we've been going back and forth. But if you want more information, let me know. I can make sure you get in contact with the group.
And Michelle Tobias works for Parks, so she's in the global address list. That's how you can get a hold of her. So any other announcements? At the conclusion of, excuse me, today's proceedings, and after we clean up a little bit, we'll be gathering at the Fox and Goose. It's informal, no host. You're totally on your own, and we're not responsible. But you're all welcome. So, and so now we're going to move on to the poster awards, the People's Choice Poster Awards. I'll turn it over to Melody Baldwin.
First thing I want to do is thank everyone that participated. It's great to see all the different types of posters that we can create with our software. I'm going to start with this poster over here, go around the room, and as I call your name, would you please come up for the participation certificate? And then I will announce the 3 top winners, People Choice Award. Fang Thong? The next one is Wendy Pierce, Margaret Kurse, and Monica Nalty, and Jackie Waite. Kyle Evans, I'm sorry, Kyle, you're number 3. These, Margaret and Monica did a cultural resources showing the mapping there. Number 3 is Steelhead Resources by Kyle Evans. Thank you. We had a great presentation by Gina Darren. It's Whippet is her poster. She's also shown it in Hawaii, everybody. So Gina Darren, and then we go to Rosie. Oh, okay. Thank you very much. And the next one is Meryl Streep. Streep. Meryl, you've been promoted.
It's not an Oscar, though.
It is Meryl Jacobson, everybody. And the next one is Diana Mastelier. And last but not least, of course, is Bill Brewster and Christina Boggs, and that's their poster right here, which also went down to the ESRI conference. Okay, those. In third place, we have Gina Darren. And there's a whole different. And in second place, we have Christina Boggs and Bill Brewster. Yay. And in first place with the most votes, really, is Fang? Hu Fang Thong. Actually, I liked your poster last year, but this one's pretty. Thank you so much for participating.
for your, yeah, Melody's been great help on this. And thanks for, I mean, really the participation is great. This adds a lot to GIS Day. So, okay. So now we come to the final, the closing keynote, and I'm really excited about this because I really wanted to get somebody this year who was going to keep people, more than 15 people, you know, in their seats for the end of the presentation. And also, since we had no budget, we had to. So we went to Esri, and I just know Michael Dangermond by reputation. I've seen some of his work and read some of his stuff that he's written, blogs and that, and he's got over 20 years experience in GIS and mapping, mostly in the realm of natural resource management. Michael has worked for MapQuest in the 1990s, and in 2009 he worked as a contractor for California Department of Fish and Game, the Biogeographic Data Branch, in support of BIOS. And I think a lot of you know what that is. So for the past 5 years, Michael's been working as a senior digital cartographer for Esri from Sacramento, specializing in online mapping and publishing natural resources information. And yes, he is the nephew of Jack Dangermond, the founder and president of Esri, but he's also the son, I didn't know this, the son of Pete Dangermond, the former director of California State Parks. So Michael's got a great connection to us here, and I'm real excited to welcome Michael Dangermond. Thank you.
Thanks. I got a new computer after 5 years there. They finally got me a new computer. So, hi, I'm Michael Dangermond. Here's where you can get a hold of me if you'd like to reach me. I'll have more on that later. But I wanted to show you some maps. Show you guys some maps first. Have you ever been? Okay, I had to go to the duplicate screen. Oh, I've been asked to tell the people on the phone to please mute your end of the phone. It's not such a secret anymore, but have you guys ever been to the end of 28th Street here? It used to be the old city dump, and now there's a park there with a little trail. And if you want to escape from here, and about 5 or 10 minutes away is this really nice beach and waterway. I found out later that it's against the law to have my dog off the leash, so don't call the cops. I don't do this anymore. But as you can see, so what this map is basically, I had a bunch of photos on my phone, and they were stamped with the GPS. And so I was able to pretty quick make a little tour. I didn't have to know any programming or much to get this going. But the reason why I wanted to show this is because the hard part is really written part. It's the narrative, and that's changing quite a bit. I'm realizing that, can you guys hear me? Okay. You guys can hear me on the phone too, I hope. And so this is called a story map. If you've seen them before, this one's a map tour. So I thought I'd show this because it might be handy for you guys if you have trails to show what's on the trail for someone who's never been to a state park or something like that. So it's a handy template. This one, I wanted to show this. This is part of a data set we made called the ecological facets. So every 15 acres around the world, it's sort of back to the future. We're going back to these integrated terrain units for analysis. So every 15 acres, there's this combination of bioclimate, land cover, lithology, and landform. And so that's what this map is about. But in particular, I wanted to show you just how this map works. So on the left, in place of where I would have a series of checkboxes where I could turn off the different species, instead I can use these tabs, and then I can show a map for each one of the species. And each map is sort of made, it's sort of custom made for each of the species. And, as you can see, I've included some like imagery in here. There's some sounds embedded in there. And then what I'm doing is I'm just masking out parts of Sonora and Mexico where you're not likely to find these species. So I just wanted to show you this as an example of having the tabs go across, and each tab has its own map. And this one, actually, Wired magazine picked up on this, but the intended audience was basically top people in ecology, to show them this data set we've been working on. And we ran an analysis of the whole world. It took my boss, Charlie Frye, who's the chief cartographer, it took him about 6 days for his computer to run the whole world. And so there are these 5 by 5 kilometer blocks for every place, every 15 acres on Earth. And we wanted to find out what were the most diverse places on Earth. And number one is right here in California, the Sweetwater Mountains. I'm running off Wi-Fi, so it's a bit slow here. And this kind of blew us away. But you can see here I can, turn off these different, there's bioclimate, landform, rock type, and land cover. And this is a template that we hired a guy from France who built this. The person in charge of these story maps, he came from National Geographic, and he was more interested in making web maps than National Geographic was. They were more interested in their existing business model. So he came to work for Esri. But what I wanted to show you was this sort of scrolling, this is called the journal app, or the map journal. So it scrolls through and it moves, it can either move the map around or show a different map each time and center on it. And then I have information in the side panel and a narrative that runs. And I thought, well, this is a really useful, for my top tabs, this is a really useful paradigm. Now, what if I took a few hours and looked for all the different information there is out there about the drought? Can I bring it in here? And so I had, so I thought, well, let's experiment. Let's say I'm making a map for the legislature and the governor showing the condition of the drought right now. I mean, this is sort of that cartoon that they have of the drought conditions over at USDA. And then, running down here, there's the drought outlook, which is coming up ahead. That's from NOAA. And current water level, so this is from CDEC. That's the PDFs that you guys make every day, and it updates every day. And Lake Mead daily water level, this stopped updating itself for some reason. So now we don't know, but soil moisture conditions and water conservation activity and water use. So this is actually the only Esri map that's in here. I called the guy from the Sacramento Bee who found out that people are using more water in the drought. You remember those first reports a few years ago? And, Sacramento, everyone was really aware of what's going on, but it took the rest of the state a little while to figure out what was happening. So this is just an example of the type of web map templates that are available. Oh, it tore that out. That's interesting. And so if you go to storymaps.arcgis.com, you can see these top 3 just appeared this morning. There's different examples you can look at and see how there are different templates that you can use to show different types of narratives. And then this can also help you choose the right template to show what you want to show. But there's a whole list here of them, and this sort of helps you choose which type you want to use if you want to use these templates. All right, we've shown that and that and that and that. Okay, so I put this asterisk at the bottom here because that kind of pointed out a company of people who make maps, on the web, and I didn't want to come in here and people go, you know what Dangermond said about about this. But first of all, I wanted to ask you, why is this joke funny? Because you've been there, right? And it's and more and more people get it now. Almost as many people that know the Star Wars know about the pitfalls of using online maps. They can lead you in the wrong direction. So I wanted to show you that because there's this whole new way that people are using maps, and they want to consume maps and share them. And, of course you know about this. We could go to a place where we don't even know the alphabet, and we could find our way around. So this is something that's changing. And then another thing that's changing is this is sort of going away. So this is a picture of the New York Times during World War II. So we know in our times that in a bad situation, you read about National Geographic, right? Do you think that's affecting the quality of their information? Yeah, I think so too. So that's changing too at the same time. And then we have the rise of social media. So according to social media, here are the causes of the drought. So we have those damn fish in the Delta. We'd only just forget about those fish and, send all the water, we could have all the golf courses we want, right? And then on the bottom left, there's people who think that the drought is actually a conspiracy by the government. And we've seen the signs, right, driving to LA. They seem like they've all been made by one person, and it makes it look like there's actually one owner of the whole Central Valley. It's really odd. So I don't think we're there yet. And then up in the upper right, we have, the evil almonds. The almonds are causing the drought, right? And then the bottom right, of course, the Kardashians. You can see their neighbors, they're conserving water, but we have these jerks that's what's causing the drought, right? We've got people that don't listen, and you can see the parking job at the bottom. It's kind of funny, that image. But, and so, huh? No, it's called just finding stuff on Google and putting it in there. But, this is why we're doing this and why I'm interested in this and why I really want to help you guys is because I really want what's real to come through, and for everyone to know there's no snow up there. That's why we're having a drought. And it's because, because of global climate change. And you know, have you seen what's happening to all the fish? The salmon, the decline in the salmon. There are these things that you guys know, that I want everyone to know. So that's why I'm doing this. Well, first of all, this is a really good article. My boss, the chief cartographer, his name's Charlie Frye, has been showing this to everyone that he knows, and it's really important. And I would encourage you to read this, and the best way to find it is by Googling these search terms. That say Metrics from Denver, Colorado by Brian Tymony. Got that? Okay. But you can read right in the center, this is from a user perspective, that every government GIS department should consider before allocating taxpayer dollars to web mapping applications. Well, what did they find out? I mean, they were actually studying how people use these web map applications. And so that's why my boss wanted to show everyone, is because there were actually some pretty startling findings there. First of all, if you make a one purpose, one map, a single topic map, you will triple your web traffic. And you'll triple it over the way we showed people how to make these 10 years ago, which is by having the portals where you can actually choose, you have one map and you choose how the map will look yourself. We found that people don't really want to do that, at least, you know, the general public. And that people only spend 1 minute and 43 seconds in here, in your map. I mean, that's just totally amazing to me. And I ask myself all the time, can I get into this map, find out what I need to know, and leave in 1 minute and 43 seconds? That's kind of the key right there, whether you've reached your audience. And then if you put different base maps in there, there's only going to be about 2% of the people that actually change the base map underneath the map. So, and like I joked about earlier, those are usually the GIS people that want to be able to change the base map. So basically, as the cartographer, you say, I'm qualified to choose which base map will best show these things to these people. And people rarely change the default settings. Even things like hitting a button that makes it full screen, they found only 0.5% will actually push that. So it was quite a bit different than how people thought that people wanted to view information on the web. And so it's a little different too. That this is how I still make maps, because I'm old school. But you know, you gather the data, I get my streams and county boundaries, and then I do the GIS. Oh, this species is likely to disappear if the general plan is implemented or something like that, and then put that in the box and then put the north arrow and the scale bars and everything like that on it. That's really good for a poster, but you know what's different about the web mapping is that it's a multi-scale experience. So this was a soil map that I made several years ago, and as you can see, it's different data based on, you know, where you're looking. So the view with the 50 states has a different data set than when I get in and I see more information. I get in, still, I'm revealing more and more, and I've changed the base map to some imagery so that you can see my farm and things like that. So you can design around someone's experience like that. And the multi-scale nature of it is what makes this so different from making a poster. So I'll just run through these really quickly, but I'll go through them in detail. But the first thing you want to know is who's my audience? And then write a narrative, and then storyboard Storyboard? Yeah. Has anyone made a film before? Yeah, I'll show you. Figure out what data tells the story at every scale level, and then choose the base map and template, and then you're about 85% through, and then you gather the data and do GIS. And that's really, it's really odd sounding. But, you know, if you get specific about an audience, get more specific than the general public, because the general public, I always think of, you know, opening the doors and you're in DMV. It's the general public. So you want to be more specific about, okay, am I writing for someone who's, is my map for 8th graders? Is it for people who have had some biology in college? You know, so get specific about your audience. Could be an internal type of thing, or it could be for, you know, for everyone, and someone you want to tell about what's going on. And then start with a narrative. You know, okay, so the wolf wanders over the border, the Oregon border, and it goes around this campground, and then it goes to look for some food and crosses the road and so on. So, you know, get all that written out. I have it here in Microsoft Word, but I use text editors more often because I can just copy and paste into the web map as I go. It makes it much more convenient. But but mocking it up in Word like this gives me an idea of the large titles and kind of how that all works by using a specific font. And then storyboarding. So storyboarding, when you're making a film, you start with the script, and then someone draws the action. And that's kind of what you're doing too. So you draw the action, and then when someone goes to make the film, they get the actors, they go by the storyboard, and they know how to shoot the scene. And that's exactly what you want to do. It's not, you don't have to draw well, as you can see from what I did. It's not, you know, it's not drawn very well. But the most important thing is in the middle. I've drawn the action of what happens when someone clicks on something. I know exactly what I want to appear. I know that there's this pie chart. I want to show what percentage of the population lives in the flood zone. And I want to show the income profile. So I have that idea all spelled out and ready for me. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate, but it will be used as a guide for yourself later on. You know, and preparing your data. This is a step that is pretty important. So you wouldn't send these musicians out without the right sound and lighting. So you wouldn't do that with your own database either. You wouldn't put it on stage without giving it the right preparation. And so here's some examples of what I'm talking about. So the example on the right isn't so good of an example because it's again one map with two purposes, showing the non-irrigated and irrigated soil characteristics. But you can see rather than someone clicking and it says the number 8, it explains what's going on, what an 8 is, and that appears in the pop-up. And on the bottom left, this is a bit simpler. So I've kind of made a sentence out of the different fields. So instead of having something where it says observer, SL, and then species, ash-throated flycatcher, date, March 13, 2001, and then notes. I've kind of, you know, turned that into a sentence or, you know, pre-formatted it a bit. I've also removed all the nulls. People don't appreciate if they click on something and it's blank. I mean, the wider and wider your audience, the more they're likely to not even understand what it is if it's blank and they click on something. You want to fill that in and say, well, this isn't even in the United States. It wasn't even surveyed, or it was, or there's no soil here, or something like that. So yeah, pre-formatting. And then, you have your database, your internal database, then make a copy of it. You can remove the fields that you don't need, when you publish. It'll speed you up. But then also make a big long text field that says something like pop-up text. You can run a Python script or use field calculator and create a sentence in there or something like that that will come up in the pop-up. So having that additional step brings you closer to your audience. I use this to help me keep organized. So I'll use text editors, and all my fields and things are in the text editor. So that way, if I delete the map, which I've done before, it's really easy to just copy it and paste it back in. That and my little drawing, that's the guide I need. And so far, there's no way you can just take a web map if someone goes, do you mind if I serve it from my server? It's not really that portable to take everything and put it over here. So this will help you, make a web map on another server much more easily. Here's some more about pre-formatting. So if you have the big long text field, now you can insert things like HTML. I've seen people place links in their pop-ups, but you can also do things like inline CSS that can change the color of values if they're significantly high. Like here on the left, I don't know if you could see lead as in red, the numbers in lead, and LPAH. So my client wanted the top 10% of values in the state to show up in red. And so that without referring to something, it will tell your client right away if there's a problem. So you can use inline CSS in there. You can pass images. I pass sounds into these pop-ups that you can get from a hyperlink. And even graphs. I mean, this was an experiment we did where you can draw a graph in Dreamweaver. And then Dreamweaver has something you draw, and then the HTML gets exposed for how to make that drawing. Then you can copy that out, put it in a Python script, and turn some things into variables. So this map, wherever you click, it gives you a different profile of the soil, based on percentage of components, different soil horizons, and some of the little boxes will show up in red if they shrink and swell a lot. So this kind of thing was a demo for customers in water delivery systems to help them understand what's going on underneath the surface. Some spatial performance tips. So like I talked about earlier, if you make a generalized version of your data layer, it will draw much more fast. So as you zoom out, it will draw faster. So you can have different versions that appear and disappear as someone scales in and out. And then multi-part shapes. I made one map that was a bunch of different elevation ranges, and you click on one and it waited to draw every piece of it, even ones you couldn't see in the screen. It took a long time. So just breaking those up into a single part shape seems to help a whole lot in response. When you click on something, the pop-up comes up much more quickly. And I think we have some more time, right? Mm-hmm. Wow, I'm really jamming through here. So as far as being a better cartographer, these are, if you wanted to start a bookshelf, these are two books that would really help you. Designing Better Maps by Cynthia Brewer. She teaches at Penn State. That's especially good with using Esri software. But then envisioning information, I recommend to everyone because it's the most cartography oriented of Edward Tufte's books, which are about design in general. And there's some really good examples in that. One of the examples in envisioning information is a concept called data ink ratio. So trying to get your graphs and things to show, to show their story without going overboard is something that's quite often a challenge. And as you can see the graph on the left, it uses the blue background, which you don't really need. And you can see how cleverly the drawing on the right actually subtracts away the line. So it puts a white line there instead of adding and putting black lines over the bar graph. So now if I wanted to put a red graph over each side, if I put one on the right, it would be much easier to read because it's got more potential in it to show more information. And then this is another good example. So, two watershed maps, one on the left. So the one on the left, they put the streams on there. Can you tell which way the watershed is draining? It'll take a few seconds. You can see it drains to the bottom right. And then there are roads, which is additional line. And then there are thick roads to show the important ones because we want those to stand out. And then the watershed is a green line that goes around. And to keep that from disappearing, they made that thicker. So they're trying to add to compensate for there being too much line. Where on the right, you can see they've subtracted away. Again, the screen doesn't show you that you can see in the map on the right that the shaded relief continues through. It's not so easy to see on here, but you kind of you've subtracted away the areas that are not important. There are streams there, but they're kind of hard to see. And then you have a park boundary, which you can still see it on. I can still see it on here, but it doesn't overwhelm it. So if I were to add a system of stream gauges on the one on the right, maybe some red dots with numbers, you would immediately see the relationship with all those stream gauges to the rest of the watershed much more easily than the one on the left, because you'd look at it and you would be processing and trying to figure out how they relate to the watershed. Again, we evolved to see color the way we do because of this advertising that's going on, that plants have put things out that we see in color. And so we can easily see something like a fruit on a green field, so color has function. And something like this is a really good resource you might want to jot down. It's called colorbrewer2.org. And this is also by Cynthia Brewer. So someone mentioned that making maps for a colorblind person. So right here you can set it up on the website. It will choose color ramps for you. I use this all the time. I don't think, I know more about color than anyone else. I use this every time I make a map. And you can choose colorblind safe. You can actually choose color ramps that are print friendly, that you could photocopy, and are colorblind safe as well. So and then you can copy out the RGB values and use those. Okay, I think I used less time than I thought, but there's some time for your questions. And this is how to get a hold of me. I'm actually here in Sacramento. So if you'd like some tips, just go ahead and send me an email. Thanks. Thank you. Yeah. Nate. Yeah.
The WebEx people thing.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
So when you're setting up a web map to be scale dependent, do you have any tips on how to do that efficiently? Because I find that when I'm setting it up to vary the way it displays as you change scale, it's almost multiplying the amount of time I'm spending on that by the number of levels that I'm dealing with. Are there any tips to make that quicker and more easy?
Yeah, if you consider where your audience is going to go, that may trim it down a bit. And then within that, just use a few ranges rather than one for each scale level, so that it only triples the work instead of makes it 10 times or something like that. So that might help a lot. Yeah, but that is kind of, that's how this is different, is that it has to work at every scale. And so it does add the work, no matter what you're doing. And it may be an opportunity to fill in more detail as you get in, too, that will help people understand better by being able to zoom into something in particular. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked what you said, I think before, about that the users only use one base map and all that.
That was really kind of astonishing.
Because sometimes when the data gets published, it gets published in a way that conflicts with the base map. So it's paying attention to that,
Yeah.
and then
it can help you design it better too, because it simplifies the design task. If you design around a single base map, then you can make it all work for that, and then you don't have to go, well, does it work with this this set of imagery? And it doesn't have to work every time for all different possibilities.
yeah, I've definitely seen maps that you switch to a different one, and then you can't even you can't read the text or whatever they have up there.
If you're switching, you may have, one map that you want this person to be able to understand what they're doing well in their work, and then one that will help this person, and one that may help this person. And it may be actually simpler to make a map for each one rather than one map that each person can customize how they want.
And one other quick comment, about preparing the data and all that. I think a lot of people, especially maybe managers or people that aren't familiar with it, they think, oh, you've got the data, you've got the GIS done, but there's a lot more work to do to present it out to the public.
Yeah, getting that appreciated by your supervisors, that's that's a difficult thing. I know, yeah. It's like, what do you mean? I thought you had this data set all finished. And it's like, well, we really need to complete it for our audience, so we meet them all the way where they are, and they're, where they're coming from. And it'll help you make a more successful map. If you're trying to get bigger and bigger audiences to understand things that you're doing and things that people in the state need to know, just some tips for that type of thing. Yeah. Any other questions? Thanks. Thanks, Jane.
Thank you. I got a lot.
Okay.
Might be We might be sending you questions now that yeah. So, okay. All right. Well, that wraps up our program. All of the proceedings except for the app clinic were recorded by, let's hear it for Zach Cunningham in the booth. Yay. So, from our public affairs office. And so as soon as we get that from him and we figure out where we're going to put park the files, I'll send an email out to all of you. And make sure we have your email. If you didn't pre-register, make sure you signed in on the computer that we had set up so that I do have your email. And thank you, and I hope you can join us at the Fox and Goose. So thanks. See you next year.